Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. The first dawn of January 1st, 2026, crept over Genoa City like a guilty secret trying to hide behind glittering skyscrapers, yet nothing. Not the pale winter sun, not the frozen breath of the streets, not even the champagne-soaked echoes of last night's celebrations, could soften the seismic reckoning that exploded across town as the new year began with blood in the snow, broken vows in whispered corners, and truths clawing their way out of graves long thought sealed. Because inside the Newman Ranch, where the remnants of a shattered celebration still glittered like broken promises on the marble floor, Nikki Newman stood trembling as she stared at Victor, whose face was carved from stone yet cracked by something dangerously close to fear. For the phone call he had just received had confirmed what he had spent decades preventing, that an enemy he buried figuratively and almost literally had survived and was now moving pieces with surgical precision. While across town at the Abbott mansion, Jack paced like a caged animal, replaying Diane's final words from the night before. Words that sounded less like goodbye and more like a confession soaked in dread. Because Diane had vanished before midnight struck, leaving behind her phone, her coat, and a single chilling message scrawled on a scrap of paper. He knows. A message that sent Jack spiraling into the horrifying realization that secrets he thought were buried alongside old enemies were being exhumed one by one. And at the same moment, in a cold interrogation room at the Genoa City Police Department, Nick Newman sat under flickering fluorescent lights, his knuckles bruised, his jaw clenched as Chance struggled to reconcile the man he knew with the evidence in front of him. Because Nick had been found at the edge of the river just after midnight, soaked to the bone, staring into the black water where a car had plunged beneath the ice, a car registered to someone who wasn't supposed to be alive. And when Chance asked Nick what happened, Nick said nothing at first, then finally whispered, "It was supposed to be over." Words that echoed like a death sentence through the room while Sharon, unaware of Nick's arrest, stood in the doorway of crimson lights opening the cafe for the new year, only to freeze as Noah appeared unexpectedly, his face pale, his hands shaking, and before she could ask why he looked like he'd seen a ghost, he said, "Mom, Allie's gone and it's my fault," triggering a cascade of memories Sharon had tried desperately to suppress, memories of Allie's haunted eyes, her cryptic warnings, and her growing fear that the truth about her family would destroy them all. Because elsewhere in a dim hospital corridor, Mariah collapsed into Tessa's arms as a doctor quietly confirmed that the baby everyone believed was Daniel's carried DNA that shattered every assumption they had made, forcing Tessa to confront the devastating possibility that her miracle pregnancy was born from a night she couldn't fully remember and a manipulation she never saw coming, while Daniel, reeling from guilt and rage, demanded answers that no one could give without detonating yet another bombshell. And as this emotional wildfire spread, Phyllis Summers watched from the shadows with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, because she knew more than she was letting on, having overheard a conversation weeks earlier that tied Victor, Jack, and Nikki together in a secret pact forged decades ago. A pact involving a woman who disappeared on New Year's Day many years earlier, and whose name had suddenly reappeared on a police report pulled from cold storage just hours ago. While at the Chancellor Winters penthouse, Lily stood at the window staring at the city below as Billy tried to convince her that moving forward meant letting go. But Lily had just received an anonymous email containing surveillance photos taken less than 12 hours ago, showing Billy meeting secretly with someone who was supposed to be in prison, someone connected to the financial collapse that nearly destroyed her family, forcing Lily to question whether betrayal was written into the bones of every man she ever loved. And as dawn fully broke, revealing flashing police lights outside the Newman Ranch, Victoria arrived to find her father being questioned, her mother barely holding herself together, and a sealed warrant bearing her own name, because evidence had surfaced linking Newman Enterprises to a shell company used to launder money for a criminal syndicate believed to be dismantled years ago. A syndicate now rising like a phoenix led by a mastermind whose identity remained hidden, but whose reach was unmistakable. While in a snow-covered cemetery on the outskirts of town, Adam Newman knelt alone at an unmarked grave, having received a text at midnight with coordinates and 3 chilling words, "You were lied." And as he brushed away the snow to reveal a name he never expected to see etched in stone, the realization hit him like a physical blow that his entire life, his rivalries, his hatred, and even his love had been manipulated by a lie so monstrous it redefined who he was. Because that grave belonged to the man Adam had been told was his father. Yet records now proved the body buried there was not who everyone believed, meaning the real truth was still alive, watching, waiting and pulling strings, And as Genoa City collectively held its breath on this cursed New Year's Day, every relationship fractured under the weight of revelations, every alliance trembled on the brink of collapse, and every character stood unknowingly at the edge of a cliff, because by nightfall, one confession would ignite a chain reaction that would leave at least one beloved figure dead, one family irreparably destroyed, and one final truth exposed that would forever change the legacy of the Newmans, the Abbotts, and everyone caught in the devastating crossfire of a past that refused to stay. Buried, making January 1, 2026, the day Genoa City would remember not as a new beginning, but as the moment everything finally, violently fell apart. The next chapter crashes open as night falls again over Genoa City, swallowing the fragile daylight that briefly promised mercy, because the revelations of New Year's Day do not fade with the sun but sharpen, turning whispers into screams and suspicions into weapons, and inside the Newman ranch, Victor Newman finally breaks his silence, his voice low and lethal as he orders lawyers, fixers, and private investigators into motion. Yet even as he asserts control, Nikki realizes with a chill that this time Victor isn't orchestrating the chaos, he's reacting to it, because the name that resurfaced from the cold files belongs to a woman Nikki once begged Victor to spare, a woman whose disappearance sealed their marriage with blood and lies, and when Nikki confronts him, demanding to know if that woman is alive, Victor's hesitation is answer enough, sending Nikki spiraling into the horrifying truth that her freedom, her sobriety, and even her survival may have been built on another woman's silent suffering. While across town at the police station, Nick finally speaks, his confession fragmented yet devastating as he admits he tried to stop the car from going into the river, that he recognized the driver at the last second, and that seeing that face, older, scarred but unmistakably alive, sent him into a panic that cost someone their life, though he refuses to say whose, because revealing that name would ignite a war no one could survive. And as chance presses him, a call comes in. That changes everything. A body has surfaced downstream, but the fingerprints don't match the identity on the registration, proving beyond doubt that someone staged their own death decades ago, and has now returned with a vengeance, while Sharon races to find Allie, following a trail of cryptic messages that lead her to an abandoned house on the edge of town, where she discovers Allie's journal hidden beneath loose floorboards, its pages filled with frantic entries detailing how she uncovered a genetic link that rewrote her family tree, implicating Noah, Nick, and even Victor in a web of secrets tied to illegal adoptions, falsified death certificates, and a child who was never meant to survive. And as Sharon reads the final entry, "If I disappear, look to New Year's Day," she realizes Allie didn't vanish by accident. She ran, terrified that exposing the truth would get her killed. While at the hospital, Tessa demands the full truth from Mariah, whose guilt finally erupts as she confesses that the night of the conception involved a setup orchestrated by someone they trusted, someone who manipulated memories, planted evidence, and used Tessa's vulnerability to create leverage over multiple families. And when the doctor confirms the biological father is neither Daniel nor the man Tessa suspects, a new name surfaces, one connected to the criminal syndicate Victor believed destroyed, sending shockwaves through Mariah and forcing Tessa to confront the terrifying reality that her unborn child is a pawn in a far-reaching game of power and revenge, while Phyllis, no longer content to watch from the sidelines, corners Jack with the truth she's been sitting on, revealing that the secret pact he, Nikki, and Victor made years ago involved laundering money to erase that woman's existence after she threatened to expose a child swap at the hospital the night Adam was born, a swap that means Adam Newman may not be a Newman at all, and that the real heir, hidden, protected, and raised under a false name, has finally come back to claim what was stolen, leaving Jack reeling as he realizes Diane didn't disappear. She ran because she recognized the signs of a revenge cycle restarting, signs she'd seen once before when people started dying to keep the truth buried. While Lily confronts Billy with the surveillance photos, his denial collapsing as he admits he met the imprisoned man to secure information that could protect Lily from an impending financial disaster. But Lily knows better, sensing that Billy is once again gambling with her future without her consent, and when she receives a call confirming Chancellor Winter's accounts are under federal investigation tied to Newman Enterprises, Lily understands that love won't save her this time. Only distance might. While Adam, shaken by the grave revelation, tracks down the coroner who handled the burial, uncovering evidence of a body switch that proves the man he hated his entire life wasn't his biological father. And as rage and identity collide, Adam vows to burn down every lie that shaped him, even if it means destroying Victor, Chelsea, and himself in the process, because whoever orchestrated this didn't just steal a life, they stole his soul, and as the pieces move, the mastermind finally steps into the light, revealing themselves not with a grand speech but with precision strikes. Diane is found alive but gravely injured, whispering a single name before losing consciousness, Newman. Enterprise's stock plummets after an anonymous data dump exposes decades of corruption, and a video is sent to every major player showing Allie alive, bound, but defiant, promising to tell the world everything unless the truth is revealed on their terms, forcing Genoa City's most powerful families into an impossible choice: confess and lose everything, or stay silent and watch the next victim fall. Because as midnight approaches once more, the city realizes this isn't just about revenge, it's about rewriting history, and by the time the clock strikes 12 again, one lie will be exposed, one alliance will shatter beyond repair, and one final revelation will leave Genoa City forever changed, proving that this next chapter isn't a continuation at all. It's the beginning of the end. The next chapter ignites without mercy as the second midnight of the new year approaches, and Genoa City trembles under the weight of choices that can no longer be delayed, because Diane's whispered name, barely audible before she slipped into unconsciousness, spreads like wildfire through the hospital corridors, landing in Jack's ears with catastrophic force and confirming his darkest fear that the mastermind isn't a stranger clawing back from the past, but someone woven intimately into their present, someone who watched holidays unfold, shook hands, smiled for photos, and waited patiently for the perfect moment to strike, while Victor, cornered for the first time in decades, realizes the data dump didn't just expose corporate corruption but mapped a trail of blood leading straight back to the illegal adoption ring that stole, swapped, and sold newborns under the cover of charity, forcing him to confront the horrifying truth that his empire was built not only on ruthless ambition, but on children's lives. And as Nikki listens from the doorway, her world collapses when she recognizes her own signature on one of the falsified consent forms, a drunken night long ago now weaponized into proof that she helped erase a mother's existence. And across town, Nick is released temporarily, but freedom feels like a curse as Sharon shows him Allie's journal, each page slicing deeper until Nick finally breaks, admitting that years ago he helped cover up a medical scandal to protect Victor, never realizing the child involved would grow up to be Allie, and that the car in the river belonged to the woman who gave birth to her, the woman who came back demanding her daughter, while at the same time, the video of Allie circulates again, updated, her voice shaking yet resolute as she gives a deadline and names names, igniting panic across Genoa City as lawyers scramble, alliances fracture, and longtime rivals consider unthinkable partnerships just to survive, while Tessa goes into early labor from the stress, sending Mariah spiraling into terror as doctors warn them the baby may not survive unless the truth about the father is disclosed for medical reasons, forcing Mariah to choose between protecting a secret and saving the child she already loves beyond reason. And as Lily quietly empties her office, refusing to be collateral damage in another Newman war, Billy realizes too late that his silence has cost him the only person who believed he could change, while Adam, armed with proof of the body switch, confronts Victor in a raw, volcanic showdown that strips decades of hatred bare. Adam accusing Victor of stealing his life, Victor firing back that Adam's survival was the only mercy ever shown, and when Adam reveals that the true biological heir is the one orchestrating the chaos, Victor's certainty finally shatters, because the enemy isn't just attacking the family, they are reclaiming it, and as police close in on the abandoned house from Allie's video, they arrive too late, finding only cut restraints and a single message burned into the floor. Truth is the inheritance, confirming Allie escaped on her own terms, while Phyllis corners Nikki with evidence that will destroy her unless she helps expose Victor, and Nikki realizes sobriety won't save her from accountability this time, while the chapter ends with a final, devastating reveal as DNA results arrive simultaneously on multiple phones across the city, confirming the impossible, that the real Newman heir has been hiding in plain sight all along, someone everyone trusted, someone everyone underestimated, and as Genoa City reels from the realization, one final image lingers. Allie watching the city skyline from a distance, tears in her eyes but strength in her spine, knowing the next move will bring the empire to its knees, because the truth is no longer buried, and the war for Genoa City's soul has officially begun.